Hi there, good evening and welcome to this special broadcast on Republic TV. Looking Forward is about stories that are shaping up over the coming week. News that is developing and would have consequences for your life and impact choices, yours and mine alike. Stories that shape India's politics, geopolitics and geoeconomics going forward. In the case of one tonight, even individual destinies. As a nation, we are still coming to grips with the loss and devastation due to the crash in Ahmedabad of the London-bound Air India flight on Thursday. Where is the probe heading to? How long before we would know what killed those innocents on board or who killed them? That's our story number one tonight. And story number two takes you to the theater of war in the Middle East. Escalation is building up like how? At least half a dozen nuclear installations of Iran have been hit by Israel. We don't know whether there is radiation threat, but no side is in a mood to back off yet. With the United Kingdom sending in its fighter jets and the United States already providing cover to Israeli operations, are we looking at a possible widening of the conflict in West Asia? And finally, story number three. Prime Minister Narendra Modi left today in the morning on a three-nation tour, while the showpiece of the visit is going to be his participation in the G7 summit in the alpine resort town of Kananaskis in Alberta, province of Canada. Our focus tonight is whether time has come to read the riot act to the Canadian establishment on its indulgence with the Khalistanis. As Prime Minister Modi comes face to face with Prime Minister Carney, would the two reset the ties in deep freeze since Trudeau's missteps last year? Let me get you the headlines first. Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarks on his three-nation tour, lands in Cyprus to advance ties with the Mediterranean nation amid Turkey-Pakistan alignment. Prime Minister's visit marks the first pan-Indian PM in 23 years, paving the way for deeper ties with the EU nation. PM Modi to later travel to Canada for the G7 summit. To complete the tour on his way back, Prime Minister will also have a stop in Croatia. A 30-year-old bridge collapsed in Maharashtra's Pune near the Kundamala area. The bridge built on the Indrayani river gave way suddenly while several people were walking or standing on it at the time. As per reports, 6 people have been rescued, 32 injured, while many are feared to have been either swept by the current or still trapped in the debris of the collapsed structure. Rescue efforts are on, with the NDRF now deployed. An Uttarakhand chopper crashed, 7 dead, including a toddler in Uttarakhand, as a helicopter flying from Kedarnath crashed shortly after takeoff earlier this morning. Civil Aviation Ministry has called for an investigation into the incident, with helicopter services on the Char Dham Yatra route immediately suspended for 2 days in the wake of the crash. Gujarat government has announced one-day state mourning tomorrow on June 16th in honor of former Chief Minister Vijay Rupani, who died in the deadly Ahmedabad AI-171 plane crash. The last rites of the former Chief Minister will be held in Rajkot. Earlier today, Rupani's DNA was matched with his remains found at the crash site, and his body was handed over to his family. Tensions are high in West Asia. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the site of Iran's ballistic missile strikes in Bat Yam, which hit a densely populated civilian area. Netanyahu said Iran will pay a heavy price for the deliberate murder of civilians, women and children. Defending Operation Rising Lion, the Israeli Prime Minister said Iran is an existential threat to Israel with over 20,000 missiles. Prime Minister is going to be in Canada for 2 days beginning tomorrow. He is there on the invitation of Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney to participate in the G7 summit. While the agenda is heavy and Prime Minister Modi is at G7 for the fifth time on the trot, what is going to be equally important is the bilateral with Carney. India-Canada ties went into a deep freeze owing to Trudeau government's open support of Khalistani extremists. And those elements have again opposed the invite to PM. While Carney has shown signs of distancing himself from the radicals, he is still susceptible to the Canadian deep state. Remember, they sat over Canada and Hardeep Singh Nijjar was their asset. We reconstruct the year past and explore the possibilities when PM Modi meets Carney. Have a look. This visit of Prime Minister Modi to Canada, at times fraught with tensions around the world, is significant. From the war in Europe to the precipitating trade crisis to the Israel-Iran all-out clash. The invite to PM Modi to be at the geopolitical high table of G7 nations in itself underscores India's standing and relevance in the Committee of Nations. Something PM Carney of Canada himself brought out.
To continued law enforcement dialogue. So there's been some progress on that. It recognizes issues of accountability. I extended the invitation to Prime Minister Modi in that context, and he has accepted interfere.
The invite got immediate protests. These are the same elements behind the plunging to depths of India-Canada ties last year.
Canada has developed a pattern of making allegations without providing specifics. In a way, the political space today, which is being given to extremist forces there. So we believe in freedoms. We also believe freedom should not be misused.
Succumbing to the vote bank politics, the then Trudeau government pandered to these Khalistani sentiments and put the bilateral relationship on the block. Ambassadors were expelled, High Commissioner's staff trimmed to half by both the sides.
जब से हमारे रिश्तों में दरार आई, और दरार का कारण जैसे आपने कहा कि हमारे भारत को जो तोड़ने की बात करते हैं, वहाँ का एक प्रधानमंत्री चुनो और प्रधानमंत्री उनको सपोर्ट करे, उनके हक में बोले, ये मुझे लगता है कि एक इलेक्टेड प्राइम मिनिस्टर के तौर पर उनका सबसे बड़ी गलती थी। कनाडा के लोगों ने भी रियलाइज़ किया कि आप अगर इस तरह से कामों लोगों का साथ देंगे तो आप प्रधानमंत्री होने के काबिल नहीं हैं, उनको घर बिठाने का काम किया।
In the backdrop of all these developments was murder of this man, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Khalistani terrorist associated with Babbar Khalsa. While the murder is still under investigation and all evidence is leading to local Gurdwara politics and Khalistani gang wars, Trudeau risked it all with India. He was facing elections and needed the support of the Sikhs, mistaking the Pakistan orchestrated radicals to be representing the whole community.
कुछ लोग ऐसे हैं, चंद लोग, जिन्होंने इनके ऊपर कब्जा करके, वो लोग शरीफ हैं, वो अपना काम करते हैं, वो ना बोल पाते हैं ना विरोध कर पाते हैं, लेकिन उन्होंने एक अलग से एजेंडा चलाया भारत के खिलाफ, भारत के प्रधानमंत्री की फ़ोटो के प्रति अपशब्द बोलने, झंडे के प्रति। इसका नुकसान हमारी कम्युनिटी को बाय एंड लार्ज वर्ल्ड वाइड हुआ है। अब पाकिस्तान से ऐसे 5, 7, 10 टोला है जो कनाडा में और बाकी मुल्कों में रहता है, 2 दर्जन से ज़्यादा आसपास लोग होंगे ये, जिनको कनाडा फंडिंग करता है, और वो फिर जो प्रचार करते हैं उस प्रचार का अब से फिर वही रास्ते ले जाता है सिखों को।
Yet, Trudeau let these radicals shout "Kill Modi" slogans and mock Indira Gandhi assassination in parade tableaus. These are the elements with no connect whatsoever with the ground in Punjab. We caught up with the former DGP of Punjab Police, Siddharth Chattopadhyay, who has tackled the Khalistani problem in its heydays of the 1990s, eliminating many wanted terrorists in encounters.
the Honorable Prime Minister of India, to attend the G7 summit. In the course of this summit, I'm sure our bonds and ties are going to go way ahead and pave the way for a long future in which our mutual trust and respect for each other is going to grow. There is a small issue which is being blown out of proportion of Khalistan. We in Punjab, and especially through the Punjab police, had seen those dark days of terrorism which nobody wants to relive.
If you see those yellow turbaned extremists, you might get an impression that they are too many. But not really, believes Chattopadhyay.
Out of the approximately 3 crore population of Punjab, not even a fraction, less than 1%, would even think about it. Nobody wants those back days to come back again. It's just certain vested interests in Canada who are leading some small groups of misinformed, misled people.
Diplomatically, Prime Minister agreeing to be part of G7 in Canada shows he can overlook provocations.
अगर आप फार साइटेड अगर आप दूर अंदेशी से देखें तो देश के प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ये बहुत एक दूर अंदेशी का कदम उठाया है, बहुत सूझबूझ का कदम उठाया कि उन्होंने बिगड़े हुए रिश्तों को ठीक करने के लिए एक पहल की है और कनाडा जाना शुरू किया। उन्होंने दूसरा देश तोड़ने की बातें शुरू की। भारत के अंदर अगर कोई देश तोड़ेगा तो उसके नारे लगवाते थे, गलत है। इसका नुकसान बहुत सारी कनेडियन कम्युनिटी को हुआ है। जो हमारे इंडियंस हैं उनको बहुत बड़ा खमियाजा भुगतना पड़ा। लाखों की तादाद में स्टूडेंट्स का नुकसान हुआ है जिन्होंने कनाडा जाना था। हमारे दोनों देशों के रिश्ते ख़राब होने से लाखों लोगों की ज़मीन जायदाद पे असर पड़ा है। वो आ नहीं पाए, किसी को वीज़ा नहीं मिला। ये बहुत एक लॉन्ग लास्टिंग इम्पैक्ट था जो पिछले 2-2.5 सालों में देखा गया है।
Carney was clear on the Modi invite.
India, the 5th largest economy in the world, effectively the most populous country in the world, central to a number of those supply chains, at the heart of a number of those supply chains, so it makes sense.
Now that the two leaders would meet in Kanana skis on the sidelines of G7, is it the moment when India should make it clear that we won't brook any further indulgence with these extremist elements by the Canadian establishment?
Oh, I think that, as I said, the summit provides an important occasion for bilateral meetings, and I must tell you that there will be, I think, a bilateral between the two Prime Ministers, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Carney, and this will provide the occasion for a reset in the India-Canadian relationship. Most probably ambassadors will be exchanged and so on. So this is important, very important development. And I think this has also given a rethink to all those elements within Canada who have been talking against Prime Minister Modi's visit. This has strengthened the hands of those among the Indian community, among the Khalisani community who have been in favor of good relations. There are elements, there are moderate elements everywhere, and those have to be supported. This presence of our Prime Minister supports the future of good relations between India and Canada.
The mess left by Trudeau needs a mopping up.
With the previous government led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the difficulties in the Indo-Canadian relationship had become quite serious because Prime Minister Trudeau chose on his own, without any evidence at all, to blame India and what he described as credible allegations, which was absolutely a completely unheard of combination of words. Now, as it happened, Prime Minister Trudeau lost a lot of popularity. He was forced to resign. Fresh elections were held, and his party, led by Prime Minister Carney, has been re-elected. But the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, they've all lost their election. That party has been decimated. That this is a significant tribute to India's strength, India's growing economy, India's global stature, that you cannot think of having a G7 summit, which is the largest global economies coming together in the G7, without the presence of India. And this is what has happened, that the whole idea that you can have a G7 summit without the 4th largest economy in the world, and all the important issues being discussed like supply chains, technology, energy security, and so many issues. So India's presence was considered absolutely important and vital by the vast majority of members. And Prime Minister Carney himself has been talking about improving the relationship with India.
The Khalistanis think they can rock the India-Canada boat. Under Trudeau, they came close to doing it. The onus is now on the Carney government to walk the talk if it wants the ties back on track. All right, so let's look forward to how the possible bilateral is going to pan out. Is it going to lead to a reset between India and Canada? And should it, given the kind of indulgence we have seen from the Canadian side? Joining us, Terry Malusky, senior journalist who, friends, you have seen him often on debates, and he minces no words when it comes to the Khalistani presence in Canada. He's someone who has closely tracked the Khalistanis, not just in Canada, but outside. Also, welcome, Terry. And, first up, has Carney distanced himself from the Trudeau legacy by inviting Prime Minister Modi to the G7 summit?
Well, thank you for the invitation. I think the answer is yes, he has, but not very far. What I mean by that is that both prime ministers are obviously sending a message that we want better relations, we want to get past this. That's good because they're setting a target even if they haven't hit it yet. They haven't got there yet. We still have not restored diplomatic relations. We don't see new high commissioners from each country taking up residence in the other. We've got a ways to go, but they are signaling that we intend to go there. And I think the plan is, and what's unfolding now is, that they want to put this Khalistan issue on a sidetrack. I don't mean park it forever. I don't mean ignore it, but put it on a sidetrack. And we've got better things to talk about, is what Carney is saying. And I think that Prime Minister Modi appears to agree. However, I remain to be convinced that the nice announcement, we've already made progress, says Carney, on law enforcement to law enforcement conversations and communication. Well, that's great, but the proof is in the pudding. Let's remember that if Indians expect to see in Canada, radical change, the Khalistanis tossed out of the halls of politics, I don't think they're going to see that for this very simple reason, that the Prime Minister of Canada is not empowered to pick up the phone, call the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and say, look, those charges you have against some Indian origin gangsters and even some Indian diplomats that you suspect of involvement in criminal activity, could you drop those charges because they're diplomatically inconvenient? That's not how it works at all. They don't take orders from the Prime Minister, and there is a process that will unfold. Remember also that in the United States, the Department of Justice has a case against a suspected murder plot against Gurpatwant Singh Pannu of Sikhs for Justice. And that's still hanging. It hasn't gone away. So nobody has apologized, nobody has retreated, nobody's saying, okay, we admit wrongdoing on either side. But they are sending a signal that they intend to park it on a sidetrack and get on with a better relationship, which is a good thing because they are putting pressure on themselves to achieve that.
Terry, you gave a lot, and my takeaways are that you believe rather that both the sides are in a mood to set aside or put aside this Khalistani issue and get into the business of getting the relationship, the bilateral relationship back on track. My question is, in the last year alone, about half a dozen incidents of violence, targeted killings in Punjab and Mumbai have happened with investigators getting the links, connecting the dots back to Canada. The latest was, of course, the murder of politician Baba Siddiqui in Mumbai. And just about last week, the investigators found that the links go back to Canada. So those elements continue to operate with absolute impunity and freedom from the Canadian soil, causing all these issues of law and order in India. How can you say that this has to be set aside? I mean, obviously, that's the elephant in the room.
Well, I made the point. I think that the justice process, the criminal process, proceeds whether the prime ministers like it or not. And that's not being stopped. It's on a side track, but it's still moving. And I think the point you make is a good one, though, that Canadians have not reckoned yet, they have a ways to go to grasp the extent of the rot how far it's gone in terms of violence in our communities and Indian communities.
Okay.
And but the thing I can just add one thing, and that is that they are in remission like a cancer. The Khalistanis are in remission in Canada in this sense. They've lost political power. Remember that previously they had the balance of power that sustained Justin Trudeau's government. That Jagmeet Singh has now disappeared basically from the political scene in Canada, and it's not very helpful to campaign and pander to the Khalistanis now if you want to get ahead in Canadian politics. Things have changed for the worse for the Khalistanis. They're in a bit of a panic. They're wailing about the visit of Modi. Why did Canada invite Modi? Oh, Sikhs are in danger and this kind of thing. For the last several days, they're still moaning about it. And let me tell you, nobody's listening. The visit goes on. The WSO, the World Sikh Organization, which is a separatist group, as you know, is not running Canada.
Good point you made, Terry, about the NDP gone off the back of the Conservatives, and hopefully that would free the hands of Prime Minister Carney to, speak to the Indian delegation with the little better options in terms of getting the relationship back on track. My last question to you before I let you go. I hope, and people in India hope, that there would be no security threats, no security situation when the Prime Minister is there in Calgary, Alberta.
Well, there are others, of course, as you imply there, who hope that there will be some security challenge for Prime Minister Modi. However, I have to tell you that it's pretty. I've been to Kananaskis. It's very beautiful. Most people do when they arrive. They just gape at the view. But it's pretty remote, and there's only one way in. And that's heavily, heavily policed, not just by the Canadian security forces, but also by each leader's own security. They're not going to get even close. They're going to be demonstrating in Banff, which is an hour down the road. They're going to be demonstrating in Calgary, which is 2 hours down the road. They're not going to get close, I can assure you. This is not likely to be a scene of any real security disturbance. What we want to see, as I say, when they emerge, is that we will be on a much better course, and that Indian-Canadian relations will be restored, if not to where they used to be one day, but they'll be on their way to a much warmer atmosphere. And bad news for the Khalistani forces, who to this day in Canada still hold up posters honoring the great martyr,
right.
That is the Air India bomber Talvinder Singh Parmar. That still goes on as a disgrace, but the public opinion is against it now.
All right, very reassuring there. Thank you so much, Terry Milewski, senior journalist from Canada, giving us a lowdown on what's expected when Prime Minister Modi lands there in Calgary, Alberta, for participation in the G7 summit, of course, the bilateral also. We'll come back to you, Terry, over the next couple of days. Thanks for joining us. And on that note, we move on to the next one. It's been close to 72 hours since Israel commenced Operation Rising Land, a biblical name for a mission Israel says was imperative for its very existence. In an unprecedented strike on Iran, with a night, Israel decisively attacked and decapitated Iran's nuclear command structure. Both from a military and a scientific point of view, what ensued was the second phase of non-contact warfare between Iran and Israel. With a night sky over Tel Aviv, Tehran, and even Amman, witnessing interceptions of projectiles ranging from drones to ballistic missiles all night for the last 48 hours. Red lines have been crossed, energy infrastructure's been set ablaze, and skylines littered with fire. Is this how the pot in the West Asia conflict finally coming to a boil? Our next report attempts to decode this rapidly deteriorating situation and how it's going to go forward from here. Take a look.
enriched uranium, a ballistic missile program, and a threat of nuclear proliferation. These were the considerations of Israel on the eve of June 13th, 2025, when it launched its largest military operation against Iran's nuclear program.
موشک همین الان اسرائیل حمله کرد به صورت زنده موشک زدن و احتمالاً کشته داده اینجا مردم داشتن.
Israel called it Operation Rising Lion. The strike was not just focused on nuclear and military targets. Israel decapitated the entire top military command structure of Iran.
I'll tell you what would have come if we hadn't acted. We had information that this unscrupulous regime was planning to give the nuclear weapons that they would develop to their terrorist proxies. That's nuclear terrorism on steroids. That would threaten the entire world.
Israel also targeted nuclear scientists of Iran.
You've eliminated nuclear scientists who are working on the enrichment program.
They were part of this criminal scheme of
But
trying
you
to
targeted
eliminate.
you acknowledge you targeted the nuclear scientists as well.
Yes.
Why are you targeting the scientists? Why
They were part of the criminal element that is destined to destroy Israel.
Iran calls it an act of war.
This was not self-defense. It was a premeditated, unjustifiable act of aggression. The targets include peaceful nuclear facilities under the IAEA safeguards, military installations, civilian infrastructure, and residential areas.
So far, Israel has targeted several radar sites, ballistic missile sites, and Iran's top nuclear facilities in its bid to prevent Iran from procuring nuclear weapons.
We attacked not only the military their nuclear facilities, we attacked their missile capability, because if the nuclear track is the first track to annihilate Israel, the ballistic missile is the second track. And we hit some of it in October. We hit more now because they were planning to build 10,000 ballistic missiles in 3 years and 20,000 in 6 years.
Iran has refused to let go of Israel's escalation. In the last 3 nights, we have seen the biggest barrage of ballistic missiles launched by Iran in retaliation.
Let me be clear, Iran will exercise its inherent right to self-defense under Article 51 of the Charter. Our response will be lawful, proportionate, and determined, and it will come at a time of our choosing. The Security Council must act now and stop the aggressor from the further aggression.
Night sky of Israel was overwhelmed with ballistic missiles, something that its air defense couldn't handle this time.
Here behind me you can see the destruction just of one Iranian missile. It is in the city of Bat Yam next to Tel Aviv, and you can see how much destruction occurred just from a blast of one Iranian missile. They are targeting civilian areas like here. You can see one of those high-rise buildings with many floors almost destroyed, and it can collapse any moment. And now the security forces with drones trying to understand if there are people still inside of this building.
This conflict is nowhere close to a logical conclusion.
I think there's a real danger that unless the war is quickly brought to an end, this will become a full-fledged war. It has already spread, initially Israel was targeting nuclear sites, and the military installations. Then there were attacks on in civilian centers in both the countries. So it has already spread. And as the casualties mount, the tempers will also increase, and there's a chance of an all-out war breaking out.
The West is egging on Israel to continue, emphasizing how a nuclear Iran would risk the security of Europe.
Je le dis avec la plus grande clarté, le risque de cette marche vers l'arme nucléaire par l'Iran menace la région, l'Europe et plus généralement la stabilité collective.
Das Nuklearprogramm Irans ist eine Bedrohung für die ganze Region und insbesondere für Israel. Israel hat das Recht, seine Existenz und die Sicherheit seiner Bürger zu verteidigen. Und gleichzeitig kennen Sie auch unsere Haltung. Wir fordern alle Seiten dringend dazu auf, von Schritten abzusehen, die zu einer weiteren Eskalation führen und die Sicherheit in der gesamten Region gefährden.
Meanwhile, the British Royal Air Force has sent in more jets to the Middle East, including Typhoons and air-to-air refuelers. The British Prime Minister said they were being sent for, quote, a contingency support across the region. The United States too has used this opportunity to overtly exert pressure on the Iranians while providing tactical support to Israel.
Well, I'd love to avoid the conflict. Iran's going to have to negotiate a little bit tougher, meaning they're going to have to give us some things that they're not willing to give us right now.
Since the operation started, first, the US, while actively refusing to acknowledge its involvement, kept pressurizing Iran to get a new deal done. Trump even discussed it on a phone call with President Putin of Russia yesterday, when the latter called to extend birthday wishes to the US president. All Trump has said that Iran had a 60-day ultimatum, but this may be their second chance. However, both Russia and China, known to have very close ties with Iran and its nuclear program, have remained largely silent on their position on this conflict, essentially leaving Netanyahu in a no-holds-barred situation.
We paved the way to Tehran, and our pilots over the skies of Tehran will deal blows to the Ayatollah regime that they cannot even imagine. And I can tell you this, we have indications that senior leaders in Iran are already packing their bags. They sense what's coming.
Concerns are extremely high about the impact of this conflict on India.
This conflict will have a major impact not only on India but other countries in the region and oil importing countries all over the world. This is the Gulf or the Strait of Hormuz accounts for 20% of global oil supplies. And since Iran-Israel conflict broke out, there has been 7% increase in price of oil, which has, there's something like more than $10 increase. Please remember, $1 increase in the price of oil leads to an increase of 14,000 crores in the annual import bill of India. And there will be similar impact on other oil importing countries.
The Islamic world in the Middle East is also largely silent on Israel's escalation, as a nuclear warhead in the hands of Shia-majority Iran could be an equally concerning situation for the Sunni-majority neighborhood. Many prominent Shia leaders in India are condemning Israel's action against Iran.
Israel had bombed in the civilian areas in which a lot of people live. And they gave a story that the scientists and the generals would live on those areas. Even if the generals or scientists were living in those areas, Israel had no right to enter a sovereign country and attack their knowledgeable people and their generals.
In a major escalation, with mounting civilian casualties, Iran and Israel have both struck each other's energy infrastructure, a red line both sides have avoided in the past.
Iranians are watching, and my fear is that while Netanyahu wants to prevent Iran from making a bomb, in history there is something called the law of unintended consequences. You take an action wanting a result A, but you might get B.
The current war between Iran and Israel has a potential of destabilizing the entire region. Now, this has to be brought to an end. There are different dimensions. One dimension is Israeli security, and that has to be taken into account. The second dimension is that Iran, the sanctions against Iran have to be lifted.
With Israel in no mood to de-escalate and Iran pushed to the edge unlike ever before, tonight, just like the last two, is going to be very long, both in Tel Aviv and Tehran.
All right, Dr. Wael Awad, a foreign affairs expert based out of New Delhi, keeps a close track of developments in West Asia, or the Middle East as it is called. Very good evening to you, Dr. Awad. And, so many red lines crossed from both the sides. The manner in which the Israelis have hit their targets, taking down the defense ministry, taking down the nuclear sites installations, taking down the IRGC headquarters, taking down their generals, half of their leadership gone, the nuclear scientists taken down in precise hits. Where is it headed to? Like, the escalation is really building up. Nobody is going to back off from this.
Thank you for having me. I think you have already said it, that the main objective is not only the nuclear installation of Iran. From the day one Israel started this aggression against Iran, they have targeted 300 targets inside Iran, including what you have said, and civilian target, where they killed more than 12 scientists, including also top general armies, and more than 60 civilians, and more than 180 have been injured. So 20 children were still under the debris. So therefore, this attack was meant to a regime change at the first place, and secondly, the pretext of the nuclear issues, which was to be used at Iran. Now, what we are witnessing is an undeclared nuclear state called Israel attacking a state where they are only thinking maybe in the future of having a nuclear arsenal. They have been attacking them and preemptive. And if there is an international law, it should be condemned by all means, that this is an aggression against a sovereign nation.
Right. Dr. Awad, you said pretext of targeting nuclear installations. I mean, there was an IAEA report which said that Iran has stepped up its uranium enrichment operations to the extent that almost 1/3 of whatever enriched uranium they have comes or has become available to them in the last 1 month alone. So obviously there's something happening, or something was happening, because of which Israel, obviously backed by the United States, has done that. And so far as the red lines are concerned, Dr. Awad, they have happened from the Iranian side also. So we are seeing for the first time, for example, Israel getting casualties because of missile strikes. And in a way, a lot of people would be watching how the Iron Dome is not as perfect as it is projected to be. What, according to you, can be unintended consequences if this escalation keeps building?
Well, let us put this straight, the topic. Actually, the whole program of Iran on the nuclear issues was established by the United States from 1950 to 1979. All right, so 1964, Iran signed the NPT, and the American provided the first 5 megawatt nuclear reactors. And then the Shah of Iran had the ambition of 10 nuclear reactor, where he approached the German, the French, and the British, and the American, who built it for him, the reactor. Now, when you were with the American, that was good to have a civilian kind of a program. But once the Shah has been removed and the Iranian revolution has come, they stole the program, and they gave all the document to Iraqi government, Saddam Hussein then, and he destroyed Bushehr nuclear reactor of Iran. And Iran went then to China, to Russia, to Pakistan to build up its own program. In 2015, we had a signing of an agreement between the P5+1, where they have signed with the United States, and they have agreed that there should not be Iranian go nuclear. And in fact, if you look at the IEA and the American response to the documents signed those days, they said now Iran cannot develop a nuclear arsenal as long as they abide by this regulation. Then here you come 2018, President Trump come, and he pull out of that trade, which was an international accord. So Iran went for enrichment because there was a violation from the American and the Western side, who was not abided by the accord they have signed together. I'm not defending Iranian on these issues, but if you look at North Korea, went to nuclear only because the American provoked them and they went to nuclear.
Dr. Awad, you know, the only hope is that as soon as possible, both sides should exhaust their missile supplies, and then maybe they would look for de-escalation. That's the only possible option we can hope for, the best possible option we can hope for. Thank you so much, Dr. Awad, for joining us, sparing your time with that perspective. And on that note, moving on to our third one, friends, which is lives lost, families shattered, and future compromised for the next of kin in grief. The Air India flight AI-171 crash has left devastation and a burning hole in our hearts. As the nation comes to grips with the biggest aviation tragedy in recent memory, there are questions in the minds of each one of us. What led to the crash? Still being seen as an accident. Tech issue or human error? Bird hit or sabotage? Investigators are already piecing together evidence as we speak. Black boxes are on their way to a foreign lab to be decoded. Tonight, we bring to you a peep into the possibilities that the AI crash probe might unravel.
From takeoff to crash, the pilots of Air India 171 had only 49 seconds to react. What happened in the last 1 minute remains a mystery to be solved. However, on June 13th, the biggest piece in the mystery of AI-171 was discovered on a rooftop at the crash site, the black box.
See, black box has two parts. One is part which collects, continuous recording of data of engine parameters, airframe parameters, like what angle aircraft was climbing, how much was the flap, how much was the aileron, what was the elevator doing, what time undercarriage went up. All that is airframe part. And other part is engine part. That what was the temperature, what was the pressure, what was hydraulic system was doing, what was happening in electronic system.
DFDR means digital flight data recorder, and CVR is the cockpit voice recorder. The DFDR, which everybody is talking about, which is utmost important item, which records almost 3,000 parameters, everything, the engine related, the engine RPM, engine oil pressure, engine speed, thrust, everything related, it gets recorded over there, and that will be the center point beyond which all other collected evidences will be collaborated, including CVR.
In the last 3 days, many theories have developed on the potential reasons for the crash of AI-171. Were the flaps retracted before time? Did the landing gear remain extended? Did Air India 171 experience a dual engine failure? Was inaccurate weight data the reason? Did fuel contamination lead to the crash? Is there a security breach or sabotage angle? While June 12th, the day of takeoff, had clear skies, Some experts believe the hot temperatures may have contributed to the aircraft's losses.
Temperature that day in Ahmedabad was 30-degree temperature, 30 degrees Celsius. But on the surface, because runway gets heated up, so there is a surface temperature which is higher than the 30 degree. So it's assumed about 42, 43 degree must have been the surface temperature. And in such condition, sometimes there is a lesser air which goes in the engine and which causes some kind of loss of thrust, loss of power in the aircraft, which is a very normal thing as long as other parameters are normal. Now, this is one factor which I observed that this must be one factor.
One of the first mysteries that emerged after the crash was why were the landing gears retracted after initial takeoff?
As a pilot, I cannot imagine that you are 600 feet and you still not retracted the undercarriage. So I will not blame the pilot at this moment, but this was one of the reasons. If the undercarriage would have gone up, probably it would have had some more time. But why it has not happened? It is a matter of investigation.
Some people even mentioned that there could be an issue in the full authority digital engine control system or electronic system of the flight. Some visual evidence points to a potential deployment of the RAT, ram air turbine, used as an alternative to generate power during emergencies for system hydraulics and electrical systems.
There are two engines. Both engines are independently controlled by a technical item known as FADEC. FADEC is full authority digital engine control. Without detailed investigation, I also can give my hypothetical thought process that there could be a technical failure on this FADEC system, mind it, on both the engine. So since it is electronic governor which is being operated by various electronic signals, a wrong signal might have got generated.
With the flight data recorder part of the black box recovered within 28 hours of the crash, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau has set things into motion for analysis of the crucial data from the flight, with sources indicating foreign investigators from France and US also likely to join the probe.
Boeing would like to find a corner where they can say, no, everything was fine. And if these people are, influenced, they can always give analysis which can hide their, shortcoming or shortages. So unless it is challenged by equally competent people from our country, they will try to say, no, there was nothing wrong in the engine.
The missing cockpit voice recorder is also a big key in this mystery. One of the early inputs on the AI-171 crash was the pilot's Mayday call. As per available information, the pilot reported thrust not achieved, no lift, falling, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday.
When the Mayday call is given, it is given in a particular manner: Mayday, 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 followed by identity AI-171, followed by he is supposed to tell what is the grave emergency. So as what we have heard in the media, he said Mayday followed by engine thrust loss. So if we concentrate on this message, pilot knew he is in extremely grave emergency and there is a thrust loss situation which has caused the aircraft to crash. Now the reason of this thrust loss is to be investigated.
There must have been some loss of thrust, and this is what pilot, as per you, has said that. And when you say loss of thrust means engine is generating lesser power. When engine generates lesser power, then lesser lift will be given to the aircraft. Okay, when lesser lift is given to the aircraft starts sinking. And this is what probably the pilot has said.
Another important clue for the investigators is the fact that the Air India plane reportedly used the airport's entire 3.5-kilometer runway, far more than what's typically needed. Questions are being asked on potential mechanical failures that could explain the dual-engine failure theory.
in the angle where the aircraft landed or the crashed, it has crashed in the takeoff attitude. Normally, when the loss of lift or loss of power is there, natural reaction of any pilot is to level out the aircraft or put the nose down so that some speed build up and you have little more time available, little more speed available to control the aircraft. But aircraft has crashed in the takeoff attitude, which indicates to me that there must have been some kind of malfunction in the control system that the pilot could not even level out the aircraft.
With the element of a bird strike conclusively ruled out, experts are now also challenging the flaps theory.
If flaps were not properly set, aircraft would not have taken off. More than that, if the aircraft is not in the takeoff configuration, there is a audio warning which comes, computer generated audio warning which says that flaps are not properly selected. And you see the visual takeoff is very clean. So I seriously doubt if there was a problem with the flaps.
Questions are being raised on the DGCA and Air India over their flight maintenance and safety concerns.
Did you get any information from the AI?
Ma'am?
You are from the AI India team. What all information you have?
Ma'am? 1 minute.
What all you have? What all you have got? You have been called by the AI. Called by the AIB, which is doing the investigation. What all information did you get?
The families of Ahmedabad plane crash are looking for answers. Air India is dodging the questions.
Wanted to know, is Air India accountable for this?
Look, it's our aircraft, it's our crew. We need to make sure the investigation is well supported. But first and foremost, we want to look after the people that have been affected by this incident.
One last question. There were multiple show cause notices given. Why were they ignored?
I don't believe this is the appropriate time to talk about things that are unrelated to this incident.
You would at least have information about the Turkish technique. Do you have contract with Turkish technique?
As I said before, this is not the time to talk about that. We're focused very much on the people that have been affected by this incident.
Yes or no? Just yes or no. Mr. Wilson, please say yes or no.
All hopes now rest on the black box, which will connect the dots and reveal the mystery of the flight that couldn't land.
All right, two straight questions that I have in my mind, and to answer those, Captain Surjit Panesar, he is aviation safety expert. In fact, he's a former director of the flight safety and training at the erstwhile Indian Airlines, which became merged with Air India and then, of course, went to the Tatas. Very good evening, Mr. Panesar, and my first question to you is, by when, because the black box has been recovered with its components and given to the experts, by when we should expect a preliminary report on what the pilots or the co-pilot said when the aircraft crashed?
Well, at the outside, I must say that the whole nation is saddened to know this crash and loss of so many lives. Now, coming back to the recovery of black box, I can assure you, black box has a capacity to tolerate temperature of 2000 degrees centigrade even.
No, my question was, how many days does it take, Mr. Panesar? Sorry to be interjecting. How many days does it take to decipher all the contents of the black box and get a preliminary report about what happened?
They have a laboratory in DGC office. They can bring it there. I don't know how much time it takes from Ahmedabad. And they have to have experts to go and read out this digital recorder. It is not easy. It's not easy to read out all the, there are more than 200 parameters which are recorded on the digital file. You have to see the engine power, position of the flaps, and so many other items they have to see before analyzing the crash. It will not take much time, but we have a laboratory in DGC office.
Can we say it will take
and they can monitor
10 days or a fortnight?
No, not more than 10 days. They can investigate, but it depends how experts they have it to decode it. which I am sorry to know, I do not know. Because the present committee which is formed by the government, they are absolutely clueless about investigation of accident. They have no knowledge of aviation and how they are going to decode it unless some experts from Boeing, NTSB or other countries they are brought in to read out the FTR.
Right. And my second question to you, the last question actually. Yeah, let me follow up with a question that I have in my mind because we're running out of time. Mr. Panesar, the fuel issue, the fuel injection issue, the engines is starved of the fuel, the flaps issue, the landing gear not retracting issue, any other tech issue. These are not going to come from the black box, right? So where would they come from? An understanding of these issues.
No, everything is recorded on the DFDI. It will come to know the position of the flaps. The flap lever is located next to the thrust lever, and there's a notch. You cannot just put the lever straight forward like the gear lever.
Right.
It takes time. Now, once you take the gear up, the flaps open from the body, the gear goes inside, then the doors close again.
Right.
That takes little time. And during that time, if any engine problem has come, it has to be seen. Only digital flight data recorder will tell you everything about the flap, speed and gear lever, how much time it has taken to go up.
All right.
Whether it was locked up or not locked up.
All right.
It is premature to imagine things and numbers.
Yeah, we are just looking forward, but as you said very rightly perhaps that it should not take more than 10 days for the experts to really decipher and bring out a preliminary report on what all is there in the black box of that ill-fated Air India AI 171 flight. On that note, thank you so much, Mr. Panesar, for joining us. And friends, this is all we had this edition of Looking Forward. Hope you have an idea of how the coming week is going to look like on your newsreels. And with that, we come to an end. Tomorrow, of course, 8 p.m. Super Prime Time Max. Be there with Arnab Goswami. Thanks for watching.